What if I told you that the single biggest asset in this room isn't a brokerage account or a 401k? It's the roof over your head. That's what it really is. I'm going to share a presentation with you, and I want you to follow through, pay attention to it, maybe come back and watch it a couple of times, and just really absorb what I'm trying to get across to you, okay? So I'm going to change and share my screen, so hold on just a second. Okay. So my name is Bill Bergfeld, and over the next maybe 45 minutes or so, we're going to walk through 8 concrete ways to take your home and turn it into an income-producing product, an equity machine during your retirement years. And we're going to do that without trying to force anything down your throat, saying, hey, one size fits all, you need to take this one. And before I even get started in the details of this plan, I want to remind you that there's going to be a printable action plan worksheet that you can download at the end of the presentation. In addition to that, I want to make sure I get this disclaimer out. This video is for educational, general information purposes only. It's not personalized financial, tax, or legal advice. You see, every strategy today needs to be run past a certified public accountant, an attorney, or a fee-only planner before you activate anything. It's not about pressuring anyone to sell their home. It's not about anything other than just making you aware of the options that most retirees never even get to realize that they have. Let's start with this. Housing wealth for homeowners 62 years old and older hit a record $14.66 trillion in the third quarter of 2025. And the average mortgaged homeowner is sitting on about $295,000 in equity as of that same time period. Nearly half of the owners, the homeowners at that point in time, have more than $250,000 in home equity. Sometime I'll ask people, how many of you have looked at your home equity as part of your retirement? How many have you included as part of your retirement plan, especially your income plan? Almost always, very few hands go up. And that's the gap that I hope I can help close today. Most people think their only 2 options are sell the house or get a reverse mortgage. Not true. Today, we're going to show there are at least 6 more paths between these 2 extremes. So that makes a total of 8 possibilities. I want to walk through these 8 possibilities all at one time. And I want to make sure that you recognize that I'm going to try to group these things into categories. Of course, we've got the reverse mortgage, the HELOC, house hacking, build an ADU, short-term rentals like Airbnb, downsize this home, reinvest in another one, sell or lease back your home and still continue to live in it, or home equity sharing. I want to point out a couple of things. There's some natural grouping if you look at these real closely. Number 1, number 2, and number 8. Let you borrow or share the equity while staying put with absolutely no landlord duties. Strategies 3, 4, and 5, they turn your home into a rental income while you still live there. Strategy 6 and 7, convert equity to cash by changing your living situation. And don't worry about memorizing this order. Don't worry about that. We'll come back to a side-by-side comparison and help you with a decision worksheet at the end. This slide is just a map of, where we're headed and what we're going to cover. Let's start with a reverse mortgage. What is it? It's a loan. It's not free money, and it's not non-recourse. Hear that closely. It's not free money, and it's non-recourse. You or your heirs will never owe more than the home is worth, even if the loan balance grows way past the home's current value. HUD approved independent counseling and required it as a mandatory step before you can even apply for this type of relief. This is for genuine consumer protection. It's not just red tape, folks, which would pop into my head immediately. So, is this a poor fit for anyone? Yeah, let me say this. I think it's a poor fit for anyone planning to move in the next few years, or anyone who wants to leave their home free and clear to their heirs. It's a poor fit if those two requirements are involved. The 2026 loan limit statistic has risen or gone up for 10 straight years now. I think this is a sign that the program keeps expanding its usefulness for those seeking higher value income because of higher valued home value. So that's important. That's the reverse mortgage. The HELOC, or home equity line of credit, I call that a bucket strategy. It's an idea for retirement income planning, yes. And instead of selling stocks in a down market to fund living expenses, retirees can draw from a standby home equity line of credit and let investments recover over time. In contrast to the reverse mortgage that we just talked about, a HELOC requires that you make monthly payments and also requires that you have credit and income qualifications before you can even accomplish this. A reverse mortgage doesn't require those things. This is a good fit for financially healthy retirees and those retirees that are financially healthy and have a steady income. But there are some risks. Here's one I want to make sure you understand. It's risky for anyone on a tight fixed budget. Now, why is that? It's because payments are required for this type of product. So that's the HELOC. Let's talk for a minute just about house hacking. Now, this term seems a little crude if you're talking just to other people, but all it simply means is house hacking is when you rent a room in your home to someone else for income. I want to use some realistic numbers here and recognize that this can vary based upon your location, but a spare room in your home typically rents for $700 to $1,500 a month. And again, let me emphasize, this depends on your location and what's going on in your surrounding area. Here's what I want to mention: roommate matching services that are built specifically for older homeowners. There's a service, for example, Silvernest style platforms. There's all sorts of things out there that are available. An important point, and I think this is something that you should certainly consider: even an informed, friendly arrangement needs a written lease, and I'm going to suggest that you do a background check on your potential renter. Because relationships and money, they just seem to wind up mixing badly when there's no paperwork involved. So I'm going to encourage that. And I want to remind you to do this: call your homeowner's insurance company before you bring the tenant into your home, because many insurance policies require some sort of rider for endorsement. This is the house hacking avenue. Let's look at number 4. What about the ADU? The ADU, that simply stands for the accessory dwelling unit. It's an above the garage apartment, maybe a shop or a building out in the backyard area. All sorts of ideas can fit in here. Many states, I think, and if you look closely, you'll find that many states and cities, they've loosened up their ADU zoning in the past few years because they're trying to provide housing more realistically. They're trying to create some reforms, making it easier now to go through an ADU than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. But the rules still vary block to block. So always check locally first and then expand. That's my main disclaimer there. This is the most capital intensive option that's on our list. Here's what I mean by that. In order to remodel that apartment above the garage or redo that room out back in the shed, you could spend $50,000, $200,000, maybe even more. So it's capital intensive. But on the other hand, it can add to the resale value of your property. And it could produce the strongest long-term rental income along with it. So if you have full tenant privacy, yep, it can work great. So that's the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit. What about short-term rentals like Airbnb? That's certainly a possibility. See, retirees that say they winter somewhere else, say they live in the north and they go south for the winter, they can rent their primary home for the months that they're gone. That effectively has someone else in their home that can pay for it. There's co-hosting services that manage everything. Photos, guest messaging, the cleaning. Well, for a percentage of the profits, of course, but useful for retirees. You don't really want to take on those tasks because it's just becomes, you don't want it to become a second job. There's one thing that you should first check, I think. There's a growing number of cities that, what do I call it? Well, they cap or they ban short-term rentals just outright. So confirm the availability and the legality for your area, for your city, before you make any plans or any investments along that route. Now, that's the short-term rental or the Airbnb. So what about downsizing and then investing the difference? That's definitely a possibility for a significant number of retirees. Let me remind you about the capital gains exclusion, though, before we get too far into this. There's a capital gains exclusion of $250,000 for single filers or $500,000 for married couples. And those exclusions are on the income from the sale of a primary residence, as long as you'd owned that residence and lived in it 2 of the last 5 years. This is hugely valuable. It's an unused tax advantage for most retirees. Let me give you an example here. Say you have a $600,000 home and you buy a $350,000 home to move into. You're downsizing and you invest roughly the $200,000 difference. And you do that at some sort of sustainable withdrawal rate for extra monthly income. There's no tax due on the profits of the sale, but there is tax due if you invest that money and you receive interest income or dividend income on it. So be aware of that. This is downsizing and investing the difference. Now let's talk about sale or leaseback. This is probably something most retirees never even think about, maybe even never even heard about it. The sale or leaseback possibility, there's several versions, but I like the family version where an adult child buys the home from their parent and the parent leases it back from the child. That's a potential win-win since the child builds equity and rental income while the parent gets cash for the home and gets to stay put, stay where they're comfortable. Then there's the institutional version of the same thing. Now, that was the family version. The institutional version is this one. Some sort of institution or lending corporation offered by some investor groups. They're showing up now more and more, and they're becoming more and more involved in this type of idea. So there's 2 negotiables with this choice. An independent appraiser should be involved to set a fair sale price. and a clearly written lease covering the rent. Rent increases, and it's important, and the term. Get a real estate attorney involved in either version, the institutional or the family. That's the sale or leaseback possibility. Then there's the home equity sharing agreement. It differs from both a loan and a reverse mortgage. It's, let me say how it's not debt at all. It's more like selling a slice of your home's future, the appreciation, the future appreciation of your home, but you're selling it today. Here's the 4 leading 2026 providers of this type of product: HomeTap, Point, Unlock, and Splitero. And I want you to make note of the fact there are going to be fee structures involved, and terms are going to vary tremendously between each one of these. So this means some credit renovations toward your share might be important. Others don't. So be prepared for that. Some of those companies will credit you back for your renovations toward your share. That's important. I want to emphasize running the true cost of capital math against a HELOC or reverse mortgage. If the home appreciates significantly, an equity sharing agreement can end up being the most expensive option on the list. So make sure you're aware of that. Now, I wanted to create what I call a master cheat sheet. And now that I've got that done, I've got it up on the screen. I want to encourage you to take a screenshot so that you have access to this whenever you need it. Recognize that strategies 1 and 2 and 8 let you borrow or share equity without a landlord role. You're not becoming a landlord of any one of those 3 possibilities. And strategies 3, 4, and 5 creates a rental income while you stay put. But strategy 6 and 7 convert equity to cash by changing your living situation. And I want you to recognize, in a sale leaseback, the former owner now pays monthly rent as a tenant, which is a real trade-off worth making sure you're aware of. I think that's super important. I want to again encourage you to take a screenshot of this and circle the row, or maybe even the rows that feel closest to your situation. I'm going to build on what you circled during the next idea, the action plan worksheet at the end of this program. Now, I want to caution you. This is the caution page or the slowdown page. I want you to recognize that reverse mortgage proceeds aren't taxed as income because it's a loan, but it does shrink the estate heirs eventually receive. That's obviously important. Rental income from a short-term rental like Airbnb or if you have an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, it's taxable and should be tracked carefully. You need to chart it out. Use a spreadsheet, chart it out. The CPA can often find deductions for you, yes, like depreciation or home office stuff, and that offset can help a lot. The capital gains exclusion numbers from the downsizing slide, since people often forget the 2 to 5 year test. That's important. The capital gains, whenever you sell your home and you downsize, when you make that slide down, recognize that you have got to take advantage of the tax that's been made, the tax reduction's been available to you. In strategy from any of these, recognize this. I want you to know that strategies from any one of these processes, they can affect your Medicare, your Medicaid, your veteran aid. This is the one that catches people off guard, especially with the 5-year look back on gifts or below market transfers. That could be a little scary, especially relevant to family sale leasebacks. And I want to insert it as a reminder here. Nothing here should be executed without the direction or coaching of a CPA or an attorney. Let them review the specifics and give you their opinion of the situation. And I want to bring this up because I think it's important. There's 5 questions that I want you to consider asking yourself. And of course, once you ask it, I want you to answer it. You can write down your answers. Don't just listen to the question. That's the reason I'm giving you this, is I want you to write it down. Take a screenshot of this slide if you need to, and use it as it's a live exercise. I'll give you a few minutes here, and a minute of quiet time if the room allows for it, but I want to point out how directly these map to the 8 strategies. No strategy on this list should be the last opinion someone gets before deciding. Then I want to make a list of the mistakes that most retirees seem to make, but I want to coach you through so you can avoid them. It's what I call the real talk slide. Spend extra time on family communication. That's important, especially if you're looking to reverse mortgage and the sale leaseback idea. Adult children, if they're surprised after the fact, believe me, that's a source of conflict about to happen. And you don't want to enter into any kind of regret from no matter which strategy you choose. There's an antidote to mistake number 1. A HELOC looks cheaper up front than a reverse mortgage. But if it isn't repaid, it can become far more expensive. Model the real multi-year cost, not just the sticker price on this kind of stuff. This is my if you slide. It ties back directly to the framework grid from earlier. This is the plain English summary of the whole course. If you look down that left column, read down it slowly and pause after each row. I want to encourage you to slightly match yourself to a row. Ask yourself, which one personally fits your situation best? If you want to zero new debt and won't move, home equity. You see the example. Your action plan worksheet. There's a printable version of this checklist that I'm going to make available to you in the comments. My hope and goal is that each of you physically fill out this form for yourselves as you finish the video. Make sure the material is not only fresh right now, but review it in another year. Refresh it if you need to. And so this action plan worksheet, these things will be available to you in the comments. I want to thank you for sticking with me all the way through this video. Don't forget the action plan worksheet. You can learn more at our Monday night sessions. It's usually a small group opening the floor for questions. You can find a link below this video also. And I want to repeat the disclaimer one last time verbally. This video today, this educational period, and it's not any real decision. No real decision deserves a basic point from this video. It deserves a personalized conversation with the correct professionals, which is what the strategy session is actually for. You see, most retirees have far more opinions than they realize. And not only opinions, but they have options. And today was about opening their eyes to what's possible with the home they already own. I hope you have a great day. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.